Vielleicht kennt ihr das auch noch, gerade als kleine Kinder war es in der Nacht immer besonders gruselig, denn wir haben uns immer vorgestellt, dass sich vor unserem Haus etwas aufhält, das unbedingt hinein möchte. Damals hielten wir auch unsere Bettdecke für einen undurchdringbaren Schild vor dem, was da draußen kreucht und fleucht. Und wenn dann auch noch das Haus, in dem man lebt, alt ist und neben einem gruseligen Wald steht, weiß man nicht, was sich dort drin alles befindet. Damit sage ich ganz herzlich willkommen zu Scary Games Folge 28, Tiny Bunny. Viel Spaß! Tiny Bunny! Herzlich willkommen zu einem weiteren Scary Game. Heute Tiny Bunny. Und ja, ich würde sagen, wir legen jetzt einfach mal gleich los und sehen, was daraus wird. Gruselig. The wind clawed at my window at night long. It wandered the fields and howled like a hungry beast. An endless song weaved from all sorts of voices, shrill, gentle, sneery, twined in the air. They were shouting and laughing, and arguing about something. Someone was running through the snow while casting long shadows that would occasionally creep close to my bed. Our house had a mind of its own, the creaky old mind of a building that had seen a lot in its days and was seemingly trying to share its wisdom with the inhabitants. The lonely house faced the forest, and the dark green thicket gazed back with its hollow eyes, rustling, whizzing, swaying back and forth. One could come out and stand at the edge of the forest to reassure themselves there was nobody behind the crooked trees. Fuzzy silhouettes swaying in the wind couldn't possibly do anything harm. It's just a play of light and shadow, just a play. I knew it was just my imagination. I was already 12 after all. Still. Still. Episode 1. The Owl will arrive. Ich bin gespannt.
Убери книгу немедленно. Сколько раз говорила, не читай за столом, вредно. Сидишь, сутулился весь.
Okay.
Пока не съешь, из-за стола не встанешь. Что я говорила?
Я достану.
Karina. That's my mom's name. Okay. I imagined my grandpa coming into my little mom's room, sitting at the edge of her bed where Olia sleeps nowadays, and saying this is in her soft, smooth voice.
особое место, дитятка.
Taiga is a special place, little girl.
Она к тебе присматривается, принюхивается,
It's watching you closely, sniffing you out,
словно хочет понять, что ты за зверь такой.
trying to discern what kind of beast you are.
Понравишься, в беде не бросит.
If you're good at swords, it won't abandon you in times of
А
trouble.
будешь проказничать, схватит за бочок и утащит с собой под землю.
But if you're a bad apple, it will grab you by the side and drag you under the ground.
Вот и дело с концом.
And that would be it. Grandma was caring, she never fought with anybody, never yelled, never swore. Those were the times without the maddening screams until late at night, without smashed dishes and mutual accusations. Our parents used to love each other back then. I remember listening in on one of their conversations by chance. They were talking about Grandma getting prepared for her funeral. She had already bought a casket, and she called it her cute funeral box. Holy shit! It waited for its time in the closets, patiently. It was black, upholstered with meat, colored material on the inside. I saw it when my grandma was getting buried. The house didn't change since the time she was alive. Only all of the photos were gone. Glass covered pictures with grey faces of my ancestors. They all had a dead but watchful look in their eyes. I crawled out from under the table. Olia was done with the cookies and was looking at my share like a sly woodland critter. I turned my gaze toward the frosted window. There were a lot of dark pines outside, but they didn't grab my attention. The pattern of frost formed a picture on the glass.
Оля, гляди, лиса!
Olia, look, it's a fox! The
Где?
fox! Where? It looked almost like those optical illusions things they put on the back of student notebooks. A mixture of lines at first glance, but if you blur your vision a little bit and look under a certain
Ты не
angel,
на улице, на стекле.
not outside, on the window.
Смотри, вот нос, вот.
Look, here's the nose.
Ну-ка, доедай.
Hey, eat up.
Да, да, сейчас. Я ничего не вижу.
Живо. Совсем немного осталось.
А, вот. Но все равно не похоже. А я говорю, похоже. Не-а. Похоже.
Прекратите. Ну что за дети?
Momentan ist dieses Spiel noch nicht gruselig, es ist eher schräg. It disappeared, went away. Little frosty patterns similar to stretched on little leaves kept creeping up the glass. My dad entered the kitchen with long measured steps. I want to have a beard like this when I grow up. Hätte ich auch gern. This was so long ago. Doors and witty comebacks were an everyday occurrence. Olia always covers her ears when she hears something like, "What's the point in all this?" through the wall. "It's all for your sake," Dad would reply, "for the sake of our family." I always caught every sound in fear of hearing the most dreaded, the deadliest word that started with a D. I don't even want to finish it. It was scary to imagine that me and my little sister could be torn apart and taken into different
Да что
families.
твоя лиса? Вот у меня на окне сова.
Опять ты со своей совой.
Так ты же вчера мне верил.
Никто ключи от машины не видел? Вроде оставлял на подоконнике.
Вроде. Вроде оставлял, вроде нет. Вроде взрослый мужчина, отец двоих детей, а вроде...
Перестань, пожалуйста, Карина. Дай мне спокойно собраться.
В корзине твои ключи, возле телефона.
Огромное тебе человеческое спасибо.
Ich verstehe nur irgendwelche Silben.
Антон, ешь быстрее, а то как мученик сидишь.
А сова?
Не было там никакой совы.
Была! Глазюки огромные! Во! И светятся!
Olya sprang up from the chair and placed her hands on her little face, imitating a pair of eyes with her fingers the size of an apple
В
each.
прошлом году бабай в шкафу. Сейчас сова?
Но я же видела!
Olya shifted her gaze back and forth from Dad to Mom to me, but I couldn't find any
А ты не
support.
думала подружиться с ней, нет? Вымышленными мышами покормить, например?
Не подначивай ребенка. Просто мала еще, и спать одна боится.
Olya pursed her lips in rebellion and rushed into the hallway. The staircase that led to the second floor creaked. Mom gave Dad a strict look. Oh, that look in her eyes. It's so uncomfortable to be pinned under it. Dad just nodded in reply and left, ringing with the keys he just found. A minute had passed and the theme song from The Little Mermaid echoed through the house. It was stored on incredibly worn-out cassette tape, which Dad already had to glue together once. It's so easy to fix objects by gluing them back together, for example. But how do you fix a relationship? Mom moved to the living room and I was left alone, anxiously stealing glances at the windows. Ooh! Olya had trouble sleeping ever since we moved into this house. She would toss and turn or curl up into a ball under her blanket. Sometimes she would jump up in the middle of the night and turn on the VCR. Cartoons helped take her mind all of the troubles we had with the move and our parents. Oh! Okay. And then Olya said she saw that giant flying monster outside her window. She became obsessed with it. Our parents did everything in their power. They tried every little trick to get rid of those ridiculous fears. Olya refused to sleep alone and didn't believe that it all was just one of her nightmares. After last night I was unsure what to make of my sister's words, what to think of it myself. Can nightmares be infectious? Yeah. That night I couldn't get a wink of sleep and ended up thinking of what to expect from my new school. There were a couple of days left before the beginning of a new term. My imagination drew long twisting hallways that led to a classroom full of kids. But all the students behind their desks were simply dark figures cut out using a template. Circular holes gaped in the middle of the faces and pairs of eyes blinked inside those holes. It was as if some completely different creatures were looking at me from behind the flat black silhouettes. Their cruel glares, filled with icy sneers, make me shiver from head to toe. Will I survive? Won't they gang up on me and beat me down, stomp on me with their bloodied shoes? The damn school can burn for all I care. I just wished for anything to happen to it. Doesn't really matter what. I didn't want to go there that badly. I didn't want to see people who are just itching to smack me on the head, trip me up, think of a new offensive name for me, worse than the previous one. Been there. I felt like the glasses I wore made me an outsider, some sort of a monster. My gaze slid across the drawings hanging on the walls. I couldn't consider myself a great artist, but Olya begged me to hang them. Drawing was the only thing that made me happy as of late. The small circle of friends I had also enjoyed my paintings, and they promised to call me from time to time. Sometimes I imagine Mom picking up the phone and saying in a cold voice, "You've got the wrong number." Or, "Anton is not around. Anton is not around." Okay. I imagined my future classmates lying in their beds, just like me, listening to the holes of invisible werewolves outside the windows. Maybe my new classmates will like me after all. But who would ever like a boy with thick glasses? Oh, jetzt bin ich deprimiert. I mean, my dad used to wear glasses when he was little, and now he's married to the most beautiful woman on the planet, my mom. Oh, jetzt geht's mir besser. The house creaked, pressed by the wind. The condo we used to live in, a 9th-floor concrete building, buzzed with the neighbor's drill, mumbled with the TV set from behind the wall, cried like a baby from the big family next door. Our current house, though I can't really call it new, was completely different. It was silent and easy, going during the day. Its shadows lay dormant in the corners, on the closet cobwebs and under the stairs, but they all woke up during the night. Something was watching me from every corner, almost as if the old photos of my deceased family with their ashen eyes that were hanging on the walls in place of my drawings. The floor was squeaking, rusty drains were moaning, the attic was occupied by nosy drafts. One could think the house was performing some sort of demonic melody. And then I realized I was in fact hearing music. It was already playing for a good while. Somewhere at the edge of my perception I could hear a flute. It was mixed with the sound of the wind, of the creaking old house, and my thoughts too. I stood up and rushed to the window. I want to reassure myself that this music was nothing more than a product of my imagination. It's not like someone is playing it there amidst the cold snowy nights, right? Okay. Someone was dancing in the field. Black silhouettes I could barely make out with the dark forest as their backdrop. They jumped around, basked in moonlight, bumped into piles of snow, rolled around and crawled on all fours. Stories about wolves playing under the moon came to my mind, but these were clearly not wolves. They stood up right at times, circled around holding hands and whipping up snow, disappearing into the shadows for a brief moment and then coming back. Something bizarre was going on. Shadows dancing in the starless abyss made my imagination go wild, making me anxious at the same time. Suddenly the music had stopped. The dancing shadows froze in place and, I could swear, pierced me with their eyes. One of the silhouettes immediately parted from the bizarre shadow cannibal and sprinted across the field with giant leaps. It glided on squeaky snow without leaving any prints until it was devoured by the pitch black shadow of my house, which became even darker and thicker. My heart was jumping around like the bird inside a cage. I shut the curtains with a swift motion and stepped back toward the bed. They saw me. A freezing torrent of fear washed over me. I stood in the middle of a perfectly dark room and listened to some unwanted guest move and scrape around, looking for an entrance. The sound moved to the right, then circled around the house. Now my guest should be at the front door. I jumped into the bed and covered myself with a blanket as if it could protect me. The shackles of fear locked my muscles. Das ist ein cooler Satz. I remembered the funeral, my grandma lying there, hands crossed on her chest, her facial features sharp like that of a tin doll. Ants running up and down her legs of, chairs that held my grandma's casket. I imagined those little creatures climbing up her head and pulling up her eyelids with the tiny legs. What the fuck? Then her wrinkly eyeballs would once again move inside her sockets and she'll be able to see her grandchildren. I was chanting the spell she taught me throughout the whole procedure, and now, lying under the blanket and listening to squeaks and holes, I was repeating the same words. Bizarre sounds had disappeared. I cautiously peeked out from under the blankets and saw curtains waving around like a hanged man. And then the night doused me with a new portion of boiling terror. The sound scratched at my eardrums. In reality, something or someone was scratching at the front door, hurriedly clawing at wood, demanding to be let in. The door was shut. Dad had become very conscious recently, so he installed a sturdy lock. I remember him staring at the forest intently, as if he was looking for someone.
Мертвое к мертвому. Живое к живому.
I hugged my knees, placing my chin between them, and drilled the door with my eyes. It was so flimsy and weak before the might of darkness. And then... the doorknob twitched slightly. Then it turned halfway, once, twice, as if the person who tried to enter had no hands. The doorknob tilted once more, and then started clicking violently. My jaw cramped from fear. My wet fingers clutched the blankets. The door creaked and opens. The wind taunted me, moaning inside the tin drains. Now you'll see. The door was wide open. The darkness writhed inside the carnivore's mouth of a doorway. Okay. It was as if the night itself was calling out to me, flapping its black wings and squeaking with rusty hinges. I was trembling, ensnared by the web of darkness that hung in the corners of my room, waiting for the one who weaved it to come out of the gaping black hole. Okay. My abdomen tightened and my chest rose up, ready to exhale a desperate scream. Before I was able to do anything, the darkness asked me. Ah. Ja, das habe ich mir irgendwie schon gedacht. My sister's pale face protruded from the thick shadows. I almost screamed from relief.
Оля, я не сплю. Что случилось?
Ola frowned and stuck out her lovely lip, a clear sign that she was about to cry.
Она опять прилетела и пялится на меня. Прогони ее, Тоша. Прогони, пожалуйста. Я так боюсь.
The fear that was tormenting me just a minute ago crawled away and hid somewhere in my stomach. I needed to calm Olga
Это был
down.
сон, глупая. Не пугайся. Сны не кусаются. Никто тебя не обидит.
Sobbed. She was trying her best to believe me, but was I sure myself?
У меня есть идея. Пойдем к тебе в комнату, видик посмотрим. Спящую красавицу, например. Тебе же нравится этот мультик? Почему у спящей красавицы принца у меня эта страшная птица?
That question took me by surprise.
Ладно, давай посмотрим Золушку.
My thoughts became tangled, fuzzy. What was that? What studied me with its eyes while dancing feverishly under the moon? The darkness was clinging to the window and it couldn't be fooled by Grandma's old chants. Couldn't be satisfied with a feast of lard and long ashen hair.
Тоша, ты идешь? Да, сейчас.
Holy shit! What the fuck? Okay. Okay. That's why I didn't want to laugh at Orient at all in the morning. Oh, okay, das war jetzt eine Oh, das habe ich nicht verstanden. We could be visiting us here in the middle of nowhere. We don't know anyone around here. So persistent. I felt extremely unsettled just from a silly thought that our morning guests could have come from the woods. I could barely hear voices coming from the front door. My mind was urging me to hide. In the closet, under the table, behind the curtains, where Olya always hides.
Тоша, подойди-ка сюда.
I felt like kettlebells were tied to my feet, but still dragged him towards the hallway. A couple of policemen towered over me in the doorway. They smelled like frost and worry. My mom always winced and grumbled the moment she saw patrol cars. Worse than bandits. At the moment, thought she looked somewhat confused.
Здравствуйте.
The senior officer, who wore a grim expression, nodded.
Тут мальчик вчера потерялся. Вовой зовут. Глянь, пожалуйста. Ты его не видел?
The policeman held out a photograph of me? To me. Okay. Scheiße. There was a ginger boy around the age of elementary school, pictured with a wall carpet as the backdrop. He had a striped cat in his hands and wore a wide smile.
Точно? Посмотри внимательнее.
Где мне его видеть? Я тут никого не знаю, да и из дома-то почти не выхожу.
А может, видел в окно?
Да, у тебя ведь окна на лес.
The window.
Нет, не видел.
Ясно.
He sounded tired, but his eyes, his stare, long and heavy, was full of suspicion. I squirmed unwittingly under the weight of guilt which his giant shadow cast over me. The policeman finally tore his eyes from me and glanced over the hallway. The stairway and the cracks in the ceiling, which I haven't noticed before for some reason.
Вы, кстати, как на новом месте? Попривыкли уже?
Понемногу, только вот дочка маленькая по городу скучает.
Скучает, значит. Из местных вас никто не беспокоит?
Все хорошо, спасибо.
The policeman pierced through me one more time with his brown eyes. My head started spinning.
Может, вам помочь как-то?
I asked that in a shaky voice to look like a polite boy and to end this unpleasant conversation soon.
Я вот стою и думаю. Ты, малец, на племеша моего похож. Шустрый парнишка твоих лет, с такими же окулярами. Все книжками зачитывался, детективами. Когда летом погостить приезжал, говорит, что в школу милиции мечтает поступить. Как я, хотел людям помогать. Смекать.
I felt uncomfortable, as if a distant relative and not a police officer stood before me.
Ох, ребятушки, сидите-ка вы лучше дома. Не ввязывайтесь ни во что. Жизнь сейчас совсем другая пошла.
Mom interjected in a cold voice.
Мне ли не знать?
Ну да ладно. Ты, Антон, в каком классе учишься?
В 6-м.
Друзей-то на новом месте еще не завел?
Пока нет. Я только после каникул в школу пойду.
Тогда вот вам на всякий случай мой номер. Звоните, если узнаете что.
The policemen were gone along with the shadows, the smell of cheap cologne, and the photo of a smiling boy. His face still stood before my eyes. I wondered what it was like for him being all alone there. For some reason I thought of the forest swaying in the wind. What did his poor parents feel? And what would my parents do if I'd gone missing? What would they cry and thrash around hysterically? Or would they accuse each other like they always do and forget about me eventually?
Мам, а Вова этот в нашем лесу заблудился?
Выходит, что так. Бедный ребенок.
I looked at the window, at the road. The police drove off toward the village. The officer's nephew came to mind when I was splitting off old paint from the windowsill. I remembered all the teenage mystery novels from the Black Kitty series I've read this summer. Your average boys and girls investigated all sorts of mysteries there. They looked for clues, spied on suspicious people, and after a set of amazing adventures, bam, solved any complicated case. They became local celebrities and must have made their parents very proud. I noticed a trail of policemen's footprints that led to the forest, and then it clicked in my head. Why don't I start an investigation on my own? Maybe I'll find that lost boy, and I'll get a reward. Olga will be so happy. And not Olga, mom and dad too. Maybe they'll even forget about their quarrels for a while. Maybe they'll even save us from the D word. I fantasized about buying Olya a Tamagotchi and getting a cassette player and a bunch of tapes for myself. And a whole box of Kinder Surprise. Da wäre ich auch dabei. When was the last time my parents bought us any toys? Last autumn, I think. My dad had lost his job at the time. There's that annoying song about it. I had little to no idea what was the accountant's job like. To count money, I think? Neighbors used to envy us. But nowadays mom and dad barely had money to afford sweets, and dad would always divide a single chocolate bar between me and Olya. Sometimes I give her my share too. No matter how much I wanted to eat sweets, she was still just a pipsqueak. I couldn't wait to go out looking for
Пойду
clues.
погуляю.
Ага, сейчас. Чтобы потом милиционеры с твоей фотографией по домам ходили. Лес вон какой густой. А если мальчика звери дикие утащили? Или того хуже?
Even worse, echoed through the hallway.
Да я рядом буду. В лес не пойду.
Что я тебе сказала? Мне дважды повторять. Лучше портфель собери или соли поиграй.
The sound of splashing water came from the kitchen. I mean, the argument was over and mom had the last word. Ah, okay. From kitchen to front yard. Okay, wenn ich in den Front Yard gehe, vermute ich mal, dass ich mit etwas Ärger bekommen würde. Ich könnte in die Küche gehen, darauf habe ich jetzt ehrlich gesagt keinen Bock. Ich vermute jetzt mal dark stuffy closet. Mom says it smells like mice, but how would she know that smell? She hates when I stick my nose in there. She's afraid I'll cut myself on the freshly sharpened axe. Olya can't even be lured close to it. She thinks Babai is living there. I tried to help her fight the fears once. I opened the door and turned on a dim lamp so she would see there was nothing but cobwebs, dad's tools, and scratched walls. She still didn't believe me. And I liked to hide in the closet and listen to Olya count outside. 1, 2, 3, better hide from me. And then drag her feet on the creaking floorboards, hoping that she wouldn't need to look for me in the cramped monster stand. Okay, dann versuchen wir es mal. Habe ich irgendeine andere Wahl, als in die Küche zu gehen? Leiter Mom, open, turn back. Okay. Grandma kept ice cream for me in Olya there, but now I could only see meat bits for soup and clumped together pelmeni. I grew to hate them already. Okay, hier haben wir also auch nichts. It was difficult to lie to Mom, but there was no other way for me to run away from home.
Мам, там что-то с телевизором случилось. Картинка какая-то тусклая, и экран весь в пол.
My mom's face became visibly
Без ножа
distorted.
меня режешь. Дострелялся в уток своих. Говорила же, посадите мне кинескоп своей приставкой. Где мы теперь мастера найдем в дыре этой, а?
Может быть, просто настройки сбились? Сходи, посмотри, пожалуйста.
Нормально же работал с утра.
Из-за снегопада, наверное, неполадки.
Mom rubbed her hands clean on the apron and went to Olya's room. Okay. I opened the front gate and went into the fields, carefully so Mom wouldn't see from the window. When I crossed half on the distance towards the forest, the snow piles became as high as my knees. I remembered my nightly fears. I saw those silhouettes around here. They were jumping around, holding hands. That hypnotizing music started playing in my head all its own. In the light of day, those distant figures felt like a simple dream. The sun turned my nightmares to ash, but the aftertaste was still there, distant ringing in my ears, distorted shadows crawling on the snow alongside me, and a barely audible whisper in my head, blurry and almost kind. Everything was silent. So silent it felt like the world was totally empty. No ground, no sky, no parents, no Olya. The time reached its limits, a one-way trip that ended at the forest's piney stockade. Sometimes silence was much scarier than any scream. Our parents would scream at each other while arguing, and both me and Olya turned to stone, listening to them. But then always came the ringing silence. Our apartment became numb and a couple of days before we departed. It was hard to remember the last time Mom and Dad joked around, laughing or spent time together, almost like all of it was in previous life. When they kissed with Olya present, she always frowned and snorted in a funny way. But one day it all changed. Something important had left our home, and something scary filled the remaining void. It was as if a fire broke out and our parents were hurriedly packing our belongings, trying to save themselves and us. From who, thought? From the people with dead cold eyes who sometimes visited in our previous home. The eyes that only saw balls of worms on the black ground and everything. And somewhere far away a siren was going off, trying to warn us from the coming menace. I shuddered, chasing away my delusions, and looked around. There were only me, this wide field, and the wind that was whipping up icy dust and belts of powdered snow. I squinted from the sun and turned my eyes to the sunless forest. It looked especially dark in contrast with the blinding whiteness. Knobby tree knots, roots, slithered under the snow like fat snakes. Rotten leaves and coniferous needle froze into the ice. Dry, prickly branches intertwined, bringing up uncomfortable thoughts about fences. Why are they protecting the forest? Or were they keeping something from breaking out? Some object was hanging from one of the pointy branches. Tried to get closer, drowning in snow, and when I almost got to the edge of the forest, I saw a knitted mitten. It looked like a wounded bird among the hungering semi-dark. Should I take it to the police? The senior officer looked gloomy, but it still reminded me of Captain Casanova from a favorite TV show called The Streets of Broken Lights. He was also always anxious, with a tired look in his eyes, but still brave and strong. With his mitten helped them find the lost boy. Woo-ba! I heard a distant shout. It looked like it came from the river. Woo-ba! As if the trees were calling out of someone. Woo-ba! It sounded closer to me. Someone was standing there behind the trees, hiding. I knew someone was looking for the lost boy, but still, something was unsettling about that figure. Its stillness, however, bent unnaturally toward the ground. Its blackness. There's no one out there, just branches and roots. It's all just my imagination. A nearby bird flapped its wings loudly. A shadow split from the tree and disappeared from my sight. It looked away for just a moment, but when I turned my gaze back to the same place, it was gone. So it was my imagination after all. Silence reigned from a painfully long time. My muscles were tightly sprung, my heart was beating somewhere in my throat. Any noise, any little movement, any small whisper from the thicket and I'd sprint. But nothing of the sort happened. I looked at the mitten once more. Wir nehmen es uns. I decided to take the lonely mitten from the branch. Okay, what the fuck? A shout rumbled across the field and dissolved into the distance. No echo, no hope for a reply. Okay. I set out the bristly trees and tried to claim my find. It didn't budge. I pulled harder, the branch cracked and the mitten tore off, landing in my hand with a squishy sound. All too heavy, wet. I squeezed it without thinking and something dark spilled from it, forming a tiny string between the mitten and the snow. Steam rose from the snow pile. I froze in place, touching my palm in disgust. Red! The sound of crackling branches invaded the silence. I didn't have to think twice before my running away. Someone was chasing me from the darkness, breaking pine branches, closing the distance with giant leaps. Snow was slowing me down, crazy thoughts flew my mind. I'll get caught, they'll get me. I'll get dragged into their thickets. I'll be gone, forever. But there was one more voice, probably one reason. It gave me strength, spurred me on. You can do it, don't stop. I heard an animal roar behind me. It was so loud my ears went numb. I felt like the sound had come from a pack of hungry beasts rather than a single one. The nostrils sucked in freezing air. They sensed my fear. Two giant wings flapped above my head. An enormous shadow flew over the clearing. A hoot, a wheeze. The roars were coming from all directions now. From the dried up raspberry bush, from the twisted pines, from under the windfall. Hurry on, don't look back. I felt like I was inside a nightmare. The snowy clearing became vicious like quicksand. I was stuck in place. I pulled my leg from the mushy trap just to be caught in a new one, even deeper than before. I continued to drown, sinking deeper and deeper with every desperate push. Was snow ever this sticky? I screamed in horror after realizing this wasn't snow. Someone or something in the snow pile was clutching my pants. I gathered all my strength and rushed forward. The pressure on my leg was gone. My boots slipped out of the hole and my soles were on a hard surface again. I reached the clear path with one jump and from there ran to my house. Its gloomy facade didn't look threatening now. That house was my line of defense from the shadows that flapped their wings and the creatures that were hidden under the snow. I tripped over the doorstep and smashed into the door. In all my hurry, I still managed to notice the claw marks. As the dog was striking the wood with its paws, demanding to be let in so it could escape the cold. I hadn't noticed these marks when I was leaving. The heartbeat in my ears was so much louder than my surroundings. I couldn't hear whether someone was following me or not. What if they were already in our front yard and Mom had locked the door? Drowning in fear, I pulled on the doorknob and it obediently gave way. I rolled into the hallway and shut the door behind me. Porch planks creaked as my pursuers ascended the stairs. My fingers slipped off the lock and I couldn't click it into my place. I gritted my teeth and pulled hard on the iron knob, whipping it between the boards. I stared blankly at the door. Someone was standing on the other side of the pitiful, flimsy barrier that was probably less useful than blankets. Wheezing breath reached into the house and crashed at me in waves. It smelled of pine and sweat. Mom peeked out of the kitchen and chastised me with the same rigid voice she always used when talking to Dad.
Что конкретно тебе не ясно в просьбе не хлопай дверьми?
Я случайно.
I snuck a glance at the door. The smell was gone, and the breath was too. If there was something in the first place, of course. Here, mere 5 meters away from Mom, my fear was slowly weakening, melting like snow in spring, and with the last bit of strength I had left my body too. What? My legs gave way. I propped myself up against the wall so I wouldn't fall over. Mom's expression had changed immediately. The cold mask of strictness and detachment was gone. Mom looked the same as before all those quarrels. She finally saw my condition, my wet pants plastered with snow.
Ты где был? Я тебе что говорила, а? Чтобы ты дома сидел. Я и для тебя пустое место.
I got afraid she would cry. I reached out to her like when I was very little and wanted to cuddle her. But Mom regained her composure fast and put on her usual face. Her eyes shined like steel. Her voice rang out.
У отца сигареты пропали. Признавайся, ты их стащил? Курить бегаешь?
Там за мной кто-то гнался, и я думал, меня...
I stuttered as soon as I started explaining myself. Tears welled up in my eyes. Mom leaned toward me and sniffed my clothes like a beast searching for the smell of tobacco. Then she squinted her eyes in suspicion and looked into the front yard. Her expression changed in an instant and she covered her mouth with her hand.
Гляди, вон же они. Прямо у забора.
My heart started thumping as if I became prey once again, and my pursuers were following me in the field. I could swear I've heard something scratch at the door, just like in my nightmare. Mom beckoned me with her finger and I gathered all my remaining bravery to look into the kitchen window, facing my fear. I could barely discern some hairy silhouettes swimming in snow through the icy winter patterns on the glass. Dogs. Just a small pack of strays with no name and owner, barely reminding of the hungry monsters that live on the edge of the forest.
Божечки.
Oh boy, were you
Ты
scared
их
of them?
испугался?
I think they'd rather be
Да
scared
они
of you,
сами тебя
Anton.
перепугаются.
Они гнались за
They were
мной,
chasing me, like a
словно
bunny.
за зайцем. А вдруг они бешеные?
The smile had slowly disappeared from Mom's face. Now she looked at the dogs as if it was her first time seeing
Что
them.
если они нападут на Олю?
Мам,
Вот бы твой отец их всех перестрелял.
Boo!
мама, они живые.
А что? Ты уж определись, они тебе друзья или враги? Не маленький ведь уже.
Mom sighed in annoyance, and I felt so bitter that I bit my lower lip and fixed my gaze on the cobweb-ridden corner just to keep myself from crying. Well, some detective I am. Oh, the heck you are. In reality, I wasn't risking my life among monsters, but rather my pants among a pack of stupid strays. And what for? What use do I have for this? Mitten. Of course. A dark, sticky mitten that belonged to the lost boy made a squishy sound in my hand. Seems like I was clutching it when the whole time. That's my trump card as a detective. I hurried to present this clue to my mom.
Мам, смотри, это Вовина варежка. Ну того, про которого утром милиция спрашивала. Она вся в крови, на дереве висела. Вон там, могу показать. Давай в милицию скорее позвоним, как нас участковый просил. Мам, гляди!
Фу!
A shadow of doubt slowly crept onto my mom's contorted face. As if she was trying to remember something distant, like someone tries to remember their dream, but the images slip away.
А ну-ка прекрати сейчас же. Оля тебя услышит, с ума сойдет. Она и так не спит, на все подряд жалуется. Еще и ты со своими шуточками.
At that moment I realized the mitten was actually wet from snow. There was no blood whatsoever. I wanted to sink through the floor from embarrassment.
Иди сюда, паникер. Да не стой столбом.
I don't just stand
Вот,
there. Come
таблетку
take your
на.
pills.
Быстро пей.
Wait, what? A golden-colored pill, reminiscent of a dead wasp, fell onto my
Я
palm.
уже пил сегодня, за завтраком.
Попререкайся мне еще. Сказала дома сидеть, нет же. Был бы отец, выпорол. Сейчас же выпей, а то ночью не уснешь. Тебе ведь в школу завтра.
So I had to swallow the bitter medication, drinking it down with similarly awful water that gave off a taste of chlorine. Maybe it wasn't Vova's mitten. Maybe it wasn't a mitten at all. Just like the forest monsters. And Olya's owl. Am I going mad? What's happening to me? Either the pill had an immediate effect on my exerted brain didn't let fear inside anymore. Serenity washed over me, bringing yawny indifference along with it.
Антон, выпил? Можешь, если захочешь. Раздевайся. Уснул, что ли?
Нет, мам, просто задумался.
Интересно, о чем же?
Так, глупости всякие.
Mom scrutinized me with suspicious eyes. As if she wasn't sure she was looking at her own son and not some doppelganger that came from the forest.
Точно все нормально? У тебя такое лицо было, когда милиционер про окно спросил.
Все нормально, мам.
Хорошо.
It seemed like the house had changed. The sofa's fabric had become discolored. Fingerprints appeared on the bathroom tiles. The light bulbs also felt different, dimmer and yellower. Even the saliva inside my mouth had a different taste. A melody from Aladdin could be heard from the upper floor. Oya was done rewatching her favorite Little Mermaid episodes and switched to other tapes. I slowly changed into my home clothes, stopped before the sink and studied my reflection in the mirror like I was trying to solve one of those spot the difference puzzles. Then I went upstairs. I walked past Oda's bedroom and slipped into my own. Was ist das eigentlich hier für ein Knopf? Okay, und erzählt hier irgendwelche Geschichten. Ich merke gerade, dass ich durch die ganze Leserei in dieser Folge unglaublich wenig kommentieren kann. Deswegen werde ich hier mal kurz eine kleine Pause einlegen und einfach mal kurz hier etwas von meinen Gedanken dazu erzählen. Also zuerst möchte ich mal sagen, dass ich dieses Spiel unglaublich bedrückend finde, wenn ich jetzt ehrlich mal sein soll. Also abgesehen von diesem kurzen Jumpscare-Moment, den wir ja hatten, ist dieses Spiel eher bedrückend als gruselig. Ich meine, wir reden hier von einem Jungen in einem Haus relativ weit abgeschieden, mit einer äußerst kaputten Familie, so wie es aussieht. Die kleine Tochter hat Angst, er hat Angst. Das alles scheint mir eher traurig zu sein, das ist wirklich gruselig. Deswegen, ja, also das wollte ich jetzt einfach mal so einwerfen. Ich komme ja mit der ganzen Leserei relativ wenig zum Kommentieren in diesem Moment. Deswegen wollte ich einfach mal das einwerfen. Okay, er hat hier drin. One of the drawers was empty. I hid the mitten there. This simple action drained the last bit of strength from me. I sat on the bed. And only then I noticed there was someone behind the curtains. My tired hands dropped to the sheet. Whether it was due to medication I took or the stress I underwent, the room began to contort as if the wind was blowing the walls out like a pair of sails. The corners of the room bent and undulated. The only stable thing in the whole room was the figure between the windowsill and the curtains. A flimsy piece of cloth was stuck to my hidden visitor. It reminded me of burial sheets.
Оля,
Who else would be standing there? I stood up and licked my dried up lips.
Оля, очень смешно.
The silhouette was unmoving. It was enveloped softly by the curtains. As if there was a thick layer of darkness there, not a human being. I reached toward the curtains. Badum, badum, beat my heart, controlled by medication. The wind sang in the field with a chorus of voices. For a second, I wanted to return to the bed, just lie down and watch the person behind the curtain, knowing full well they were looking back at me. They looking without blinking, waiting for me to fall asleep. Plastic rings rattled against the holder when I pulled open the curtains. Ja, das war klar.
Да я сразу понял, что это ты.
A blinkingly bright halo lit up above Olya's head with the setting sun as the background. my sister was shining. When she was just a baby, Dad always used to say she was shining with happiness. I always retorted, but Dad, she's not some flashlight. But I brought her to the window one day and sunlight poured on her smiling face. I felt like I was holding a light, woven child.
А я все видела. Да ну! Что ты спрятал?
She was just like my mom when she was little. Before she put on her sad mask of tiredness and switched to her commanding tone of voice.
Ничего, просто...
Olya ran up to the table, her eyes round, and asked,
Ты что-то украл и теперь прячешь? Ты вор? Что? Глупая. Ничего я не крал.
A clear image came to mind, that mitten hanging from a tree branch. What if I did steal it after all? From the forest, from the tilted figure standing behind the black trees. Olya could be selfish and stubborn when she wanted.
Покажи тогда. Поклянись, что никому не скажешь. Тогда покажу.
Olya wore a plotting smile.
Клянусь маминым сердцем.
An oath she heard in one of the movies about the pioneers we've
Не
watched.
говори так.
Olya nodded and made a gesture with her hand, locking her mouth with an imaginary key. She was filled with curiosity that was splashing in her giant eyes. I opened the drawer and Olya leaned in, holding her breath. It looked like there was not just a simple mitten, but some sort of exotic critter.
Это чья-то варежка?
She said that as if she couldn't understand what she saw.
Один мальчик потерял. И сам потерялся. Теперь понимаешь, как опасно гулять в лесу, особенно детям? Ему, наверное, там очень холодно. Его найдут? Обязательно. Участковый по домам ходит, всем фотографии его показывает.
Olya traversed the room with care and pressed her tiny palms against the window.
А почему он по домам ходит, а не по лесу? Боится?
The question caught me off guard.
Милиционеры ничего не боятся.
Ha! Klar.
И лес они прочесали.
Yeah, right. Flashed in my clouded mind. Did they really check every nook and cranny where darkness, cold, and whispers of icy branches dwell? If that's the case, how did they miss the mitten? Or did it appear later, for me? I changed the topic, as if trying to get Olya as far away as possible from the forest thicket.
Если я сам найду пропавшего мальчика, нам, может, награду дадут. Кучу всякого, как в поле чудес. Клёво же.
Olya wasn't listening to me. She was piercing the forest with incredibly adult eyes, uncharacteristic for her.
А что, если эта сова его утащила? Ерунда. Не может сова поднять человека. Но вот что...
I was picking my words with utmost care. I forced them out from my overexerted brain.
Ты в лес не суйся. Мне кажется, он какой-то... Как бы сказать... Проклятый, что ли? Как в сказке? Нет, скорее, как на той страшной кассете, что родители прячут.
Olya shivered and stole a glance at the window.
Я видела, как ты убегал. За тобой кто-то гнался? Нет, просто, чтобы мама не волновалась, спешил домой.
As I looked at my sister, my heart was tearing apart. She was so fragile. It was so easy to stifle her light. A gust of wind and a small fire would be gone.
Хорошо тебе. Меня вот мама не пускает даже на крыльцо. Как принцесса в башне сижу. Никуда не могу выйти. Так и умру тут от скуки. Не придумывай. От скуки еще никто не умирал. У тебя же есть я и мультики, а мама с папой скоро помирятся. Знаешь, что бы я загадала на следующий день рождения? Чтобы родители тоже в детей превратились, и мы бы все вместе играли, как раньше. Ага, а если бы они стали размером с жука, то мы бы их в спичечный коробок посадили.
Olya giggled and tugged at my sleeve.
Тоша, пойдем Аладдина смотреть.
Frantic won over my desire to be with my little sister. I was washed over by some sort of heinous apathy.
Вымотался я. Что-то не хочется. Ну пойдем. Мне скучно одной, а мама занята все время. Можно выбрать другой мультик, который ты еще не видел. Да я все наши кассеты наизусть знаю. А вот и не все. Ты Питера Пэна не видел. Помнишь, ты уснул на середине? А там потом такое. Ну пойдем, пойдем. Давай попозже. Рассказать тебе, чем все закончилось? Утром расскажешь. Утром не захочу. Придумала. А давай в прятки. Нет, Оль. Тогда нарисуй мне динозавра. Оля, блин. Нарисуй, нарисуй. Да оставь ты меня в покое.
I blurted it out with work and thinking, and then I was immediately taken aback. I'd never screamed at my little sister like that. Olya started at me in shock. Her lips started trembling, a precursor to tears. My chest was seething with disgust and embarrassment. What happened to me? I hurried to prevent Olya from crying.
Ладно, уболтала. Давай смотреть мультики. Только недолго. Уже не хочу.
I came up to her, put my hands on her soft head.
Пойдем. Питера Пэна посмотрим. Ага, ты опять уснешь.
I smiled and lifted her chin. Her eyes were wet and felt bottomless.
Не усну, обещаю. А потом я тебе целого трицератопса нарисую. Ура! Трицератопса! Ну, почти.
Olya rubbed her eyes with the sleeve of her pajamas and shining smile returned to her face.
Давай ты пока кассету перемотаешь, а я у мамы попрошу сгущенки с хлебом. Только утром свежий привезли, как ты любишь. Неси, только аккуратнее, а то разольешь. Опять ругаться будут. Спорим, не разолью. Кассета где-то в тумбочке. Поищи пока.
Olya disappeared into the doorway, and I dragged my feet to the neighboring room. The old Fulton TV was gathering dust in the corner. All that was left was clicking the button on the front panel. The tube warmed up and familiar white nose started dancing on the black screen. I almost reached out to turn on the VCR when noise calmed down and the blurry image appeared for a moment. It was a dark tiger forest, just like the one outside my window. The picture split the screen in half. Something creepy resembling human speech was coming out of the speaker. Okay, das ist creepy. Just a few moments later, the scenery was again overshadowed by noise. Did it catch some raw signal? Local TV station only really showed Soviet cartoons, and even that was pretty rare. And only just recently I used to watch Robotech before school. It was so awesome. Maybe I should tinker with the antenna. What if I catch this channel again? On the other hand, Olya had asked me to find her tape. It wouldn't be nice to disappoint her. But in my sleepy state, I didn't have the strength to do all of it. Na gut, suchen wir danach. I shifted through the shelves full of dolls and blue hippos from Kinder Surprise. I found the tape I needed, thanks to its shabby spine. I got the black rectangle from its box. The tape inside it rustled by rewinding to the beginning. This rustle was lulling me to sleep. Drowsiness attached me while I was squatting before the TV. Images whirled in my head. Me and Olya flying above the forest, tumbling in the soft clouds. I noticed that the clouds underneath us part, bearing the bristly pine tops. Swampy darkness slept among the trees. The wings are no longer able to hold us and Olya.
Ты не смотришь без меня?
My sister brought the tray with uneventfully cut bread and a whole can of condensed milk. Condensed milk. I rubbed my
Нет,
eyes.
садись. Мама с папой опять ругаются. У них сейчас период такой. Глупый какой-то период.
On the screen, Wendy was hiding Peter Pan's shadow into the dresser. Oya was entertained by the cartoonish dog Nana.
Может, и нам родители собачку купят? Ага, как же. В Небыляндии у меня будет своя собственная собака. И кошка. И попугайчик.
Oya smeared a slice of bread with a thick layer of condensed milk and handed it to me. Ugh. Ich weiß nicht, das klingt irgendwie eklig, oder? Mir geht's so.
А у тебя
Have you
все
lost
молочные
appetite?
зубы выпали? Конечно.
Oya frowned, deep in thought.
У Питера Пэна зубы молочные. Вдруг со взрослыми зубами тебя не пустят в его страну? Мы что-нибудь обязательно придумаем. Попросим папу исправить тебе возраст в паспорте. С чего это папа будет документы подделывать?
Oya took a bite from the sandwich and started talking with her mouth full.
Будет. Мама говорила, что он так делал. А я подслушала. Смотри, уши вырастут, как у Дамбо.
Oya got worried and touched her ear. I smiled to myself.
Нет, это нечестно. Он крутится как юла, он летучий дьявол.
And she got sucked into the fairy tale Neverland. To be honest, I also imagined myself there in a land where no one ever ages, where no one argues over little things, where no one listens to fights and the sound of broken plates at night. I felt like I was dreaming with my eyes still open. Then my sister's scream pulled me back to reality.
Тоша, скорее, штору задерни! Зачем? Никто же на тебя не смотрит. Уже темно, а когда темнеет, прилетает сова. Я боюсь.
I got out of bed, fighting my drowsiness, and closed the curtains. I did my best not to look outside towards the treetops, toward the tiger forest which seemingly drew closer and closer. Of course, it was just a visual effect from shadows of branches scraping the snow.
Тоша, мама думает, что я напридумывала про сову. И папа считает, что раз я маленькая, то значит врушка. А сова есть. Вот честная-пречестная есть. Ты же мне веришь, что она там и каждую ночь прилетает и...
I swiftly grabbed Olya's hand and looked her in the eyes. I was trying to transfer at least some of my courage and determination. But did I really have those qualities?
Я тебе верю, слышишь? Ты только родителям больше не рассказывай про сову. У них и так хлопот по горло, они только рассердятся. Ты мне говори, если что случится. И в окно не смотри. Но она хочет, чтобы я смотрела. Перехочет. Притворись, что ее нет и не было никогда, что она выдумка, как родители говорят. Ей ждать надоест, она улетит.
We followed Peter Pan's adventures and nothing had happened. As if the forest didn't kidnap kids, as if our parents weren't tearing each other apart bit by bit. Captain Hook was running away from a crocodile and Captain Pan was headed to London on a gilded sailboat. By some miracle I lasted longer than my little sister. Olya's eyelids had dropped. She started snorting lightly, resting her chin on the side of the bed. I stood up and left Olya's room. I was looking out the window, studying the field when Mom peeked into my room.
Довольно баловства. Завтра первый день в школе. Ложись, тебе надо выспаться. Не хочешь же ты, чтобы тебя все дразнили Соней?
I don't think everything is so simple. As if sound sleep would ensure my classmates would like me. I covered myself with a blanket up my neck and listened to the house humming, to something invisible rusting in the corners. My inner voice had a question for me. Do I want to hear that mysterious flute again? Yes? Or no? Maybe it's just a part of growing up and I can't fully understand my own desires. The forest wailed behind the barrier that was my walls. Some ethereal entity wandered the fields. Branches shook as if calling for me. The wind howled on in the night. My thoughts were like annoying lies that entered my head before becoming weak and tangled. I didn't notice how I fell into slumber. It has come, after all. The day I feared the most. The first day of new school term. Okay, wisst ihr was? Ich glaube, ich werde an diesem Punkt einmal unterbrechen. Ich glaube, wir sind jetzt weit genug gegangen und ehrlich gesagt wird es tatsächlich sehr anstrengend, die ganze Zeit diese Sachen vorzulesen. Offen gestanden hatte ich von diesem Spiel überhaupt gar keine Vorstellungen, also ich hatte wirklich keine Ahnung, worum es in einem Spiel geht oder wie es aufgebaut ist. War wirklich der erste Start dieses Spiels, den ich jetzt gerade gemacht habe. Und, okay. Also zuallererst muss ich sagen, wie gesagt, bis auf diese kleinen Momente ist das Spiel für mich eher bedrückend als wirklich erschreckend. Es ist trotzdem eher die Geschichte von zwei Geschwistern, die versuchen, in einer eher kaputten Familie zu überleben. Und die ganze Geschichte entwickelt sich wirklich sehr, sehr langsam. Ich habe hier versucht, wirklich geduldig zu sein, weil ich dachte, okay, das Ganze braucht ein wenig Anlaufzeit, um verständlicherweise wirklich gruselig zu werden. Aber mittlerweile zieht sich das Ganze wirklich unglaublich lange. Und ich muss ehrlich auch gestehen, dass die ganze Vorleserei für mich mittlerweile wirklich anstrengend wird. Und ebenso muss ich sagen, dass auch das Format des Spiels nicht unbedingt meins ist. Wir haben hier nicht wirklich was zu tun. Das Ganze ist eher eine Geschichte, die erzählt wird. Wenn euch aber interessiert, wie es weitergeht, könnt ihr euch es gerne holen. Es ist auf Steam erhältlich, Tiny Bunny. Ich muss sagen, wie gesagt, ich bin jetzt nicht unbedingt so der Fan von diesem Spiel gewesen, aber jeder hat das Recht auf seine eigene Meinung. Ihr könnt euch gerne mal selbst ausprobieren. Und ja, ich hoffe auf jeden Fall trotzdem, dass euch dieses Spiel gefallen hat. Und wir sehen uns beim nächsten Mal wieder. Ciao!